that woke is dead. Well, we're here to inform you that woke's demise has been greatly exaggerated. During the 1980s, Ronald Reagan had similar sentiments which many Americans believed. Communism is dead after the fall of the Berlin Wall, only for communism to hide for a little bit, rear its ugly head once again. And one of the products of that resurgence of communism in the United States was none other than Barack Hussein Obama, one of our foremost, or rather recent presidents. Not foremost, that is a misstatement on my part, a big misstatement on my part. One of the most recent presidents of the United States. And now he's trying to be one of the leaders of the resurrection of the woke movement. Yes, there's been some pushback here and there. But remember that people that like him that have massive bully pulpits, they use it to great success. Therefore, we warn our audience, as will happen throughout the rest of this episode that we have been teasing for a few editions now. These people and their ideas do not go away easily when they are intent, hell-bent, some would say, on doing the damage that their father Satan is attempting them to promote, to propagate. They will continue no matter the impediments placed before them. Welcome each and every one of you to this new edition of Irrespective. For those of you that are new to these episodes, my name is Gio. Me joining him and I joining he, my father, Jesus.
Good evening, friends. And you just reminded me of Freddie Prinze. Like quite a few comedians, he took his own life.
Must be a good-looking guy.
Uh,
Oh, no, yeah, I didn't remind you in that respect. Got it.
he was a good comedian. And talking about things that you think they're gone and they make a comeback, he said that the smartest roaches were the Puerto Rican roaches.
Yep. Why is that?
And then he said, well, when you step on them, they go, the minute you raise your foot,
Off they go.
off they go. And it's the same with communism and now with the woke agenda. I think tonight's topic is very, very important. For the longest time now, we have been admonishing and warning and sounding the alarms that they're out to get your kids. Who is they? What do they want from our kids? They is any and all things worldly, secular, and they want to turn your kids into homosexuals, into bisexuals, into non-binary. And we have what I'm going to allow myself to call him the chief influencer, the words of Barack Obama, confirming that they are out to get your kids. Of course, as Christians, many of you are going to say, well, I think this would be a waste of my time because I don't listen to any secular programming. I don't have secular influences in my life. Neither do my kids. Hold on to that one about your kids and about yourself. I'll be back for it in a little bit. But that's the argument that many Christians present. Now, the part where they get duped, Gio, is that they don't go out looking for secular advice, or at least that's what they claim. That's what many say. But they haven't noticed that the secular mentality
Sure.
came into the pulpit many, many, many decades ago. And now it's coming in the latest methodology or form, in the form of AI. Yes, preachers are slowly fessing up to the fact that they're asking AI to help them with their sermons. And so, what's wrong with that? Somebody would ask, AI is going to be everywhere. We might as well get used to it. Well, the AI is whatever other people, organizations put into it. And so, once again, if you think about it, if you think about it thoroughly, you have the secular mindset coming into the church in many different ways, and Christians saying, it doesn't touch me. I don't pay attention to the secular sources.
Unfortunately, this is part of humanity's, shall we say, apathetic tendency. I don't get involved. I won't say anything about it until it touches me personally. And it's unfortunate that even in many instances where it actually touches them personally, of course, in a negative way, in many instances, they're even too afraid to speak out against this because it's going to cost me my job. It's going to cost me potential upward mobility or whatever it is that they think that it will cost them. At the end of the day, what ends up losing is morality. What ends up losing is the future of our children. What ends up losing is our reputation before Christ. All these other things, which unfortunately men and women they have a tendency to put in the back burner as not as important as temporal prospects. By the way, before we continue, we'd like to invite those of you that have not yet subscribed to our YouTube, Rumble, and X pages, which we are streaming this stream through now. Please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're watching this through Rumble and haven't subscribed, please subscribe and also share our content. Additionally, please give us a thumbs up. Once the algorithms, it's an algorithms game out there, you know how it works. Once there's organic interest that's accruing on our content, then they'll begin to share our content with others. That way you'll help us to spread the word. Now, to begin this edition, we have it, as it were, in text format. We've been saying for a couple of editions that we were going to touch upon this because there's a lot to unpack here, and that's what we want to do on this edition. Before we play the clip for you, we have it on text because we're going to go line by line over what Barack Hussein Obama said recently, because again, there's a lot there to unpack. But first, we'd like to read a couple of texts to give a biblical foundation for what we're going to say.
Yes, Ephesians 6:4. First from the NIV, fathers or parents, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. This is something that all Christian parents should be paying attention to and adhering to it as strictly as possible. Now, from the New King James, and you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. Now, Barack Hussein Obama suggested in a recent episode of Michelle Obama's podcast, in my opinion, that's, I believe, what it's called. Anyway, he said that men need gay friends to learn empathy and kindness. And he also suggested that men need to prepare themselves so that when their kids come out as gay, or they start showing that they have this inclination or non-binary, they know how to deal with that. And so as we go through the things he said, please pay attention. It's not that we want to read anything into his words, but when you listen to what he's saying, Gio, I clearly hear behind the scenes we are working to get the mind, the soul of your children. So therefore, prepare yourself as a father, as a mom, to deal with the fact that your child is going to approach you, letting you know that he or she is gay, homosexual, and or non-binary. And then he goes on to say that a boy, and you ask yourself, well, where do these two come off saying things like this? Because they have no experience training young boys. And that's the same question we have. But then again, some Christians will jump into the conversation and say, Christ was not married and he spoke on marriage. So what if he speaks about fatherhood and training up a boy? Well, the gap between the comparison is so large that it's almost offensive. What do I mean? If the Creator informs me about any issue, I can take that and say, yep, I'm going to run with it because he is the Creator. But if a human with no experience on whatever matter tries to do the same, I'm going to go, what is your source? First of all, you don't have the experience. And number two, you're leaning on the experience of others. And on many occasions, you yourself tell me that the experiences that others have, they could be faulty. Well, maybe they're leaning on studies and polls, and we know how those go. They change just about every other week. So some of the things that he said are really alarming for those that listen to them for the first time. For us, we've been listening to this for the longest time, and we've been warning you, guard yourself, guard your mind, guard your kids, because they're after their soul. They want to flip them.
Sure.
And so I think we're going to go through some of the things he mentioned, and then you, I guess, have to judge it for yourself and see if it's true what we've been saying, that you may not be reaching out to these secular sources, but these secular sources are out there and they have made their way into the pulpit. And all you have to do is listen to people like Rick Warren and once that comes, and I don't want to mention his name. Perhaps you feel comfortable. I don't like to give props. I already mentioned
He's the champion
Warren.
of champions.
Yes.
Everybody's
And
a champion.
so you know that these things are being taught at church, and we just wanted you to at least have a sample that corroborates what we have been teaching.
Take a listen to what he said.
And that's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy,
One dad.
one dad. No matter how good the dad is,
He can't be
like
everything.
he can't be everything. And then that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned as a guy was I had a gay professor in college at a time when openly
Yes.
gay folks still weren't out of line, who became one of my favorite professors and was a great guy and would call me out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant. You need that
Well, and
to
it's-
show empathy and kindness. And by the way,
Yeah.
you need that person
Yeah.
in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or non-binary or what have you, they have somebody that they can go, okay, I'm not alone in this.
yeah.
Right. So
Now, there's a couple of things that stand out to me immediately, and let me share it with the audience. Number one, there's a constant diminishing of fatherhood, especially from those whom are ardent defenders of secularism, like Barack Obama, his wife, and others whom surround his orbit are. If you've read books like The Communist, for example, by Paul Kenger, if you read The Roots of Obama's Rage by Dinesh D'Souza, and others, which give you a backdrop, and they're highly recommended, by the way. Some people will say, well, it's not necessarily important to know these things now. Well, if you want to know where Barack gets his ideas from, where he gets his ideology from, and cut behind the smokescreen of the caricature that was portrayed by the media consistently so that people wouldn't look behind the man, so to speak, those books and others that talk about Barack Obama's past will give you a lot of information as to why he says things like this. Comes from a broken home. His father disappeared at an early age. He was raised by his mother and by his grandparents, whom were communists. And in college, his own biographer has said that the guy experimented with homosexual acts. He was a sodomite. Tucker Carlson, not too many years ago, interviewed a guy whom testified that he had engaged in relations and had drug-fueled orgies, as it were, with this guy. Mind you, Tucker's never been sued over the matter. The guy that claims this has never been sued over the matter. They've never even addressed it because even Obama's biographer has admitted that in writings that he would put to his girlfriends, he said that this was something that he dreamed about consistently.
You don't want to take that to the courts because you have a thing called discovery,
Right.
and then everything's going to come out. So they just let it fade away into nothing. But
Exactly.
your point is still valid. If you think we're lying, go ahead and sue us.
Right.
And then we bring in discovery into the from the legal system, and then everything would have come out.
Yeah. You look at other people like Frank Marshall Davis, the guy that comes to mind, this professor that he mentions, I think it's when he attends Columbia University, if my mind doesn't fail me. You'll note that all of these things, the attack against the very institution that is known as marriage and the family created by God, you were talking earlier about some people undermining Christ's credibility when he talks about these things. He is the creator. John says that all things were created by him, for him, and through him. So he knows about all of these things.
The name of the teacher is Lawrence Golden.
There you go. So you have a man whom has experienced these things, a man who was trying to promote these things. And the very thing, what does he do in order to promote them? He undercuts the things which are supposed to be vanguards against these sinful acts. The vanguard should be masculinity proper, informed by Christian ethics, the family, and other things that God has created. So evidently, again, we're looking behind the scenes here. We're already peering behind the scenes of what the idea here is. The first thing that you have to cut out, of course, is masculinity, the proper man, what a man looks like. Notice that at the beginning of his statements, he said, you can't just have the father, I'm paraphrasing, you can't just have the father informing that boy's life. You have to have other people that even give you perspective on the father. Now the question is, what perspective on the
And
father?
so let's just say that other person is a father. Who corrects that?
Correct.
Because a lot of times in the schools, they'll tell you, trust your counselor. He or she, that's the person you can really trust. And they've been working against dads. And by they, once again, I mean the secular people, the people that want the social engineering to happen before you can even be aware of it. How have they painted men throughout the years? Let's just take this guy from King of Queens.
Yep.
He's a moron.
Yep.
The other one from Raymond.
Yes.
Somebody Loves Ray. I forget what the name of the program is.
Everybody loves Raymond.
There you
The
go.
Simpsons. They propagated that idea. Dad's a moron. He doesn't want to do anything but eat donuts all day. The wife is the intelligent one in the house, et cetera, et cetera.
So
Married with children is another one.
yeah. We have an article here from the Christian Post from July 17th of this year, 2025, and we're going to quote from it because some of the things that Obama said have somehow found a place. Maybe it's not a place of prominence, but they have found a place in many a pulpit, and we just want to lay the evidence in front of your feet so you guys can judge for
Could I
yourselves.
also interject one more thing because this is important? We were talking earlier about how he says that you need to go to a third party. In this case, he's suggesting a sodomite to give you perspective on your father. What of the perspective that's a
So
euphemism?
what
that
about
he's
if
using?
indirectly, now I'm going to interrupt you and please hold the thought. No, what about if we send them to him?
Well, that's exactly where I was going. Because if you think about it, then he's already bad-mouthing. What if that third party, or Barack, are bad-mouthing the father for having traditional Christian values? That's what, you see, folks, you begin to see how the undermining of truth, the undermining of what is moral, the undermining of what is ethical is hidden behind, all we want to do is show you another perspective that is equally valid to that which is moral. That's how they
Or
hide the
maybe
rot.
not just equally valid, but even more valid than what you're holding on to.
We're not saying that that's equally valid. What we're saying is that that's the presentation. That's
That's
what
what
they're
they're
giving.
saying.
Exactly.
And so what about if you send them to him? Well, that's impossible. How can I send somebody to Obama?
But his comments, to your point,
That's the point. They're on
Exactly.
television, they're on
Exactly.
radio, they're everywhere. That's why I called him, or some people believe he would be the chief influencer. But
Right.
anyway, here's something he said that we believe you need to pay attention to. This was said during, once again, the OMI program or podcast. That would be Michelle and her brother. And he said that men need gay friends. Listen to this, that men need gay friends to learn empathy and kindness while preparing for potentially fathering a son who identifies as gay or non-binary.
so there's
In
only one
other
option.
words-
There's only one option: acceptance and endorsement of sodomy. There's only one option according to what he's promoting.
There's so many things here, Gio. If you don't have gay friends, then you are completely alienated, unlearned, if you will, on any and all things that have to do with empathy and kindness.
Right.
It's not available to you because he said to learn empathy and kindness, you need gay friends. So you mean to tell me that all the empathy that has been going around throughout the world all these years, throughout humanity, that all came to the humankind, to the human race via homosexuals?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that all the kindness that has been shown over and over and over,
It's only from the gays.
only,
Only
the
from the
gays?
gays. That's what he's implying.
And so if you have manly man and only manly man in your circle, because you don't want your circle to have gay friends, you don't have gay friends in your circle? Well, first of all, friendship is a very important thing.
Yeah,
To
that
call
thing-
somebody a
That
friend
concept has been diluted to absolutely nothing nowadays.
is something that we all need to pay attention
Right.
to. You can have a coworker,
An acquaintance.
an acquaintance, a
Right.
neighbor, but to say in my circle of friends, I have gay friends, I have an issue with that because are two of us going to fellowship unless we have something in common?
Correct.
The Bible teaches that that's impossible. So again, I know for a fact that most Christians, they know precisely when to manifest empathy and kindness. You don't just throw it around like you have so much of it that you can never become jaded. You understand there is a place for it and you deploy it. Not because you learned it from some gay people around you or you have gay people in your circle of friends, but because mom and dad, they taught it and they showcased it. And this is something that, especially if you're born again, to be kind and merciful comes to you in an even heavier dose, more volume when the Holy Spirit abides you. So look at the way, Gio, that he's asking people to bring these people into your life. Send your kids into the circles where these people tend to do their thing.
You know, I'm going to look at this also from another angle. These are the talking points that were being used when I was in high school. And ultimately, yes, these are the very presentations and propaganda that was used to soften the public to acceptance of the sodomites among us. Some of you might balk at my use of the word, but that's what the Bible calls them. They are practitioners of sin. And I'm not ashamed to stand on biblical truth to call them on their sin. That's the most loving thing to do. You want them out of their sin. You don't want to continue coddling them in their sin. That's not what Christ calls us to. Although, if you listen to the messaging that comes from people like Chip Gaines and whatnot, Joanna Gaines, they have accepted this and they are still woke in their mind. The woke mind virus is still abiding in there to the point where, as we covered a couple of weeks ago, they've adopted this posture, this thought process that castigates Christians for not, quote, understanding or, quote, seeking to understand the other side. There's nothing to understand. They're living in sin. And Christ calls you out of your sin and to be sanctified, to be justified, and to live in holiness for him. Paul very explicitly states in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, as were some of you, after he mentions a list of things that will forfeit you, as it were, from the kingdom of heaven. But he says, as were, these things were. You guys were these things. You no longer identify that. This is why we said repeatedly that it is an oxymoron. It is an inherent contradiction to call someone a homosexual Christian or a Christian that fornicates or a lying Christian. There's no such thing. Those things are mutually exclusive. But I go back to an important point here because this thing continues to stand out at me. These are the same talking points that were used years ago when I was in high school. And there's a part of me that thinks that Barack and others like him are doing this because they're thinking, you know, people have a tendency to be forgetful. And yes, we had a season recently where people got tired of the woke. This is part of the woke presentation and they rejected it. Maybe if we start reintroducing these often used talking points we used 2 decades ago or even more, because this stuff has been around since the 60s and even before then, right? If we start using those talking points again, maybe we can soften people up to accepting it once again and then make our way back into the cultural waters.
If this was dead, then someone like Mondami wouldn't be leading the
Good point.
race to be mayor of New York City.
Good point.
Amongst the things that he has said is that the New York City Police Department is anti-queer. So if these things are dead, if the woke movement is dead, then why is this guy enjoying all this popularity?
Well, to your point, they continue to use these things as if they were fault lines that allows them to gain the space that they're looking for in society and culture and power, what have you. My point is, and this is a point well taken, you include another name that's growing in popularity now. Evidently, either they're seeing that there is a shifting in cultural waters or they're doing just like those in Sodom and Gomorrah did. This is an attribute that the Bible clearly tells us about these types of people that practice this sin. You're blinded. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We're still going to move forward to practice the evil, the wickedness that we wish to practice.
So when we bring Mondami into the conversation, we confirm, we verify what we said at the beginning, neither the woke nor communist or communism is dead.
These people are going to practice this and they want to make sure that others join them and endorse them.
Here is some more intelligence and wisdom from Obama. No matter how good the dad is, he can't be everything. And then that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Man, he's just calling the role of the father absolutely insufficient. He's undermining God's creation.
And these are the seeds that turn into, my dad is a moron.
Right.
Why can't you be more like, and then you hear your kids saying things like this and you ask yourself, why?
Yep.
Where did I go wrong? Where did I miss it? Well, the thing is, they're being bombarded. how the music, the television programs, the schools, they're all in cahoots in this. Of course, it's done in such a way where you don't pick up on the fact that this is being done to you or it's being done to your kids, and you are there saying, but I take him to church every Sunday. Folks, if you think that 30 minutes, 60 minutes of what they call the youth service
Just nothing more than a glorified nursery at the end of the day.
once a week, if you think this is really helping to shape your kids, if you have yielded, turned over the rearing of your children to the Sunday school program,
Yep.
to the Christian school, which, by the way, most of them have a secular lineup as it pertains to their books.
Yep.
If you believe all these things and a few more, you have been duped. And then the child turns 11, 12, and you start seeing things that you go like, where is he picking this up? He's picking up a lot of it from his Christian friends,
Yes.
from Sunday school, from the youth program. I remember one young man, he came to us from another ministry, and he said, our youth night was so cool. We had the haunted house for Halloween, and he went on to name a few of the things that they did, and I went, as I'm listening to him, I'm thinking in my mind, oh, you went right along with the secular calendar.
Right.
And then he said, and once the youth meeting was over, we all went over to the discotheques, we went over to the dance joints, and we
Jeez.
partied away all night long. And then next service, we were singing Hallelujah. So you're being fooled.
Yep.
Or perhaps you choose to be fooled. You choose to close your eyes to the things that are happening before you, because this guy, ex-president, is telling you that he's going to tell your kids, the secular system is going to tell your kids, now let's take a look at your dad. Let's see what your dad is all about. So it's not you creating an impression in your son's mind and his soul. It's a whole bunch of other people like this guy telling your sons, this is what you should be seeing in your dad, because this is really the way he is.
This goes back to what I said earlier, what we've been saying up until this point. Notice that the authority of the father, which should be the supreme word in the family, being the head of the household, is continually undermined by people like Barack Hussein Obama. Now, some people will say that makes sense in his case because his father was not present in his life. Well, yes, I guess you can say that, but then you'd be giving him the benefit of the doubt, saying that's his experience and that's why he is saying this. What about the countless other men whose fathers were not in their lives, and they turned out to be fantastic fathers to their families? So you have to be careful with the excuses that are extended to these things, lest you start whitewashing the evil that is being promoted from the heart, from these men's spirits, like he's doing.
So he has no experience as a father. Just opining, though, he has no experience as a father. So he says, not only does he have zero experience as a dad, but his dad
Right.
never helped him.
Now, some of you might say, but doesn't he have two daughters? We're talking about what he's saying here. He had no boys. He has no boys.
The focus is boys.
Right.
One of the most valuable, notice, one of the most valuable things I learned as a guy, was I had a gay professor in college. In other words, I was influenced
Yeah.
by this gay professor.
So the argument could be made that since he didn't have a proper father in his existence, his father wasn't there to be a vanguard against the influence of this subversive professor.
He's telling you, follow my example. He said, you need, in your circle of friends, you need gay people. And he's basically telling you, what I just recommended to you, I have it in my life.
He is the president.
And so you listen to stuff like this and you go like, are you kidding me?
Mm.
You're asking people that don't need these other inclinations that people have embraced in this generation in their lives. They don't want it. You still have to have it because this is the way you bring empathy and you bring kindness into your life. That's the only way to learn it. You need that to show empathy and kindness, he said. And by the way, you need that person in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or non-binary or whatever, they have somebody that they can go to and they'll tell them, okay, I'm not alone.
One of the things that continually pops up in my mind when we cover stories like this It goes back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Chip and Joanna Gaines. The tweet in which Chip Gaines verbally denounced believers was wicked, in my opinion, and the opinion of the Bible, frankly. The way that he attacks Christians for simply calling out sin, as we should, by saying you just don't understand their perspective, and what Barack Obama is saying here are one and the same thing. And what is that, Gio? The word of the sinner, the one who practices sin, he who is encouraging you to practice the same sin that he practices and demanding that you endorse that sinfulness, their word is supreme, not God's word. That's what I continually hear echoing in my ears, and I know you do as well, when you hear this sort of messaging reverberating. And it's even more dastardly when you think about it. It's more despicable when Christians defend this sort of idea.
A couple more paragraphs and we'll be done with this. In his 2020 memoir, A Promised Land, look at the title, A Promised Land. Obama recounted the influence Lawrence Golden, his gay European politics professor at Occidental College, had on him. Here's a quote. Once I got to college and became friends with fellow students and professors who were openly gay, though I realized the overt discrimination and hate they were subject to, but in the previous thought, he said people weren't out. They were closeted.
But I don't understand.
But now they're out.
How can they be hated and have a tenureship at a major university? That doesn't really make much sense. And by the way, he's lying because it's been a known thing that the phenomenon of overly liberal professors in the college sphere has been like that for decades. Decades.
Well, once I got to college and became friends with fellow students and professors who were openly gay, though I realized the overt discrimination and hate they were subject to, as well as the loneliness and self-doubt that the dominant culture imposed on them, he wrote, I felt ashamed of my past behavior and learned to be or to do better. No. Now they were telling you, this is the way you shall behave towards us. This is the opinion you shall have, etc. During a 2015 interview with Out Magazine the same year, the outlet declared him their ally of the year. Obama noted he took Golden's class during his freshman year at Occidental College. He was about 18 years old. So he himself is telling you, without telling you, at 18 I was vulnerable, or he's perhaps not telling you, but some of the letters he wrote are telling you, I already had this inclination in me, and I was looking for some people to certify my inclinations instead of looking for help out of this situation, which is not normal.
Yep. I completely agree. This is the sort of stuff, again, this is why we encourage you, read those books. Paul Kenger, The Communist, talks about Frank Marshall Davis, one of the persons who were highly influential in Barack Obama's life. Dinesh D'Souza, The Roots of Obama's Rage. Those are instrumental in understanding this guy's, shall we use the word, I'm using it cheekily, tongue in cheek, but his perspective on the matter, so to speak. But I think we've pretty much given a good explanation.
One more thing to say, and then we're going to go to a new segment that Gio will unveil in a second.
By the way, we've been working on this for the last week, so we hope that you enjoy it. Just stick around for a few more minutes.
I'm sure some of you have noticed, and by some of you, I mean those that have been tuning in for a while, that we have changed our approach to the Wednesday and Sunday effort that we put forth to help Christians. I believe, this is my belief, Gio doesn't have to share it. I don't know if he does. I think he does. That if we don't stop doing church the way we've been doing church all this time, we will be the most misinformed and uninformed people that walk the earth.
Seconded.
Because we think this is the only way to do church. This is the only way to stay informed. And friends, we will continue to do this, even though some of the people that were used to whatever methodology we're using before might say, we're not interested in this new package you guys are offering. That's fine. We did what we did. I think God used that, but this is something that I believe he's using now to inform, to educate, to sound the alarms.
Yep.
And so we ask you to indulge us, to allow us to do this, because we believe after a few weeks, you will see how important it is that we tackle these issues and that we do it in this format where we are not restricted to just saying, look at this verse and let me explain the verse to you. We are actually taking biblical verses like we did tonight and letting you know this is what God would have you do with your boys, with your girls. This is what the secular mindset is saying, and you need to pick up on the fact that it has gotten inside the church and they are turning your kids against you. They are turning them into whatever it is they want to turn them. In this case, with this example, into homosexuals, non-binary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
It's well said. Now we turn our attention momentarily to a new segment that we have been working on behind the scenes. By the way, some of you have been asking that you enjoyed the debut of Cucamonda GPT. And you've been demanding that that chatbot were to make an appearance. And we don't want to use that much computing power. Otherwise, our electric bill would necessarily triple. So we would have to have Cucamonda GPT make an appearance occasionally. We don't want to burn out our CPUs, you having to use all that processing
Plus,
power.
in the particular situation that most of you enjoyed it in, we need to go around while preachers and prophets are speaking in tongues,
Yes.
because that makes it a lot more interesting when Cucamonda
Yes.
does what Cucamonda and only Cucamonda can do.
Correct. But we figured that we debut a new segment this week, which would be of interest to our audience. We thought long and hard, what would be a very succinct and efficient way to prove to people that there are elements, people, entities, groups that engage in continual assaults against the intelligence? How can we make this vivid for our audience? The light bulb went off in our heads. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to introduce to you a new segment that, again, we will debut tonight, but it will make a reoccurring appearance over and over again on these editions. Let me set the groundwork here for you just to see how this is going to work. Earlier this week, New York City, Midtown Manhattan, probably one of the richest boroughs in all of the United States, there was a lone gunman all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada. He was targeting the NFL headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. He enters with an AR-15 style rifle. And of course, now with what we know, he was going to commit suicide by either police or by his own hand. But he wanted to kill a few people over the supposedly issue of the NFL not addressing the issue of long-term concussions.
He wants his brain studied.
Correct. Well, I guess he'll get his wish. Now, but being that the mainstream media
Wait till they open the cranium.
Correct. There's another definition to cranium command. For those of you that get the reference, you'll laugh. Anyways, what ends up happening is if you've seen the coverage this week, you would have known that for some time now, there's been a few mass shootings that have happened in the last couple of years committed by transgender persons. But the media really, really, really wants a white nationalist to commit these murders so that they can say, you see, this is part of what's happening in the country and we need to address it. Earlier in the week, CNN had a segment on Aaron Burnett's show when they were covering this live, and they invited on a John Miller, who is the chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst for CNN.
Intelligence is in there?
Correct. Intelligence analyst for CNN. And when they were asking about the identity and the ethnicity of the shooter, even though the pictures were widely circulated that it wasn't a white person, they ended up saying the following. You'll see it now. But to debut the segment, just to prove what we are attempting to do here, folks, this is the new segment we introduce and we debut this evening called Retard of the Week. By the way, those are in-house. We recorded those in-house also. And that dog belongs to one of our neighbors.
And do you know, John, at this point, when he came in, the way that you described him, walking across the plaza all in black, but with a long gun visible, so it sounded like he, other than the long gun, which is not a simple thing to say other than in New York City, right? People don't walk around with guns like that. But was his face visible? I mean, do they have any idea at this point who he is?
They do not know who he is. They know he is a male, possibly white.
That's funny.
He's wearing sunglasses. He appears to have a mustache. And that picture has been distributed to every police.
pause this. I need to pause this.
He's possibly white.
Mind you, Aaron Burnett repeated the same lie. We're looking at the photo here. Does that person look white to you?
No.
Doesn't
Can't-
look white.
No. Can't say.
As
he
a
looks
matter of
white.
fact, it looks more like black mixed with Asian,
Yes.
but possibly white.
No. Anything but white.
Yeah.
Asian, yes. Black, yes. White, no.
Some interesting. You can only arrive to two conclusions, folks. Either these people are willfully blind, or we've arrived at a point where, considering all things, anything that doesn't look like this person is basically white. So from now on, this is the skin tone that the person would have to be in order for them to say that the assailant, the criminal, the shooter, was black or a minority or what have you.
But are you sure they can't say he's part white?
Well, looking at the photo that we're looking at now,
Because at the end of the day, all the evils that are going around, the white man,
yeah,
the white
at
man,
fault for everything.
you are guilty of all the evil that is maligning, destroying,
Oh boy,
and
I'm
just
telling
doing a huge number on society. So, retard, huh?
retard of the week. That's our
No,
new.
in case some of you are offended by the word retard, we're not talking about mentally challenged people. We are talking about malicious people like these two.
John
that
Miller,
know
Aaron Burnett.
exactly. They know exactly what they're doing. And so, yep, we're not going to retract. They are retards
Correct.
because they choose to play the role of morons.
Correct. What do we have for our audience on Sunday? We hope that, by the way, if you stuck around for the entire stream, thank you for doing so. There's an interesting thing going on in Arkansas, and it's been the subject of a lot of news throughout the last few weeks. There's an only white, all white community that is popping up in the Ozark Mountains,
Mm.
and they've created a private membership association, and the typical suspects are up in arms about the fact that this group is doing an enclave of European white descended families and only for that group. And a lot of Christians have jumped into the fray criticizing this, saying, how is it possible that these persons were to segregate? Well, we want to take up the issue of if, in fact, the Bible actually promotes or denounces the idea of segregation. Let me leave you with a bit of a preview for Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, again through YouTube, Rumble, and X. You'll be rather surprised with the verses that we're going to pull from the Bible that actually encourages segregation. Now, I know what some of you are thinking.
I know what they're thinking. How can this extra white man take on these issues?
I'm so clear, I'm transparent, folks. The fact of the matter is that there's plenty of texts in the New Testament where it tells Christians that there has to be a level of segregation. No, wait, Gio, I can't hear my holy ears. I mean, this is just blasphemy that you're uttering. This is heresy that you're absolutely uttering. Let me give you a few examples. Get that pervert out from among you. God calls you to be an exclusive people. God calls you to be a chosen generation. Things of that nature which intimate, as it were, a separateness, if you can use that word.
So I have to be in the world, but I don't have to be worldly.
Correct.
And my fellowship is with other kids, sons, daughters of God, that they belong to the kingdom of light.
Right.
What's the issue?
Have no fellowship with the works of darkness, the Bible
Unequally
says.
yoked.
Don't be
The Bible
unequally yoked.
talks
Exactly.
about what's the big issue.
But I'm glad you're mentioning this, because what we want to attack is the very essence of how many American Christians have taken certain American ideals and dovetailed that into the Bible and giving that supremacy over what the Bible actually has to say. And the comments that are popping up about this thing that's happening in the Ozark Mountains reveals a lot about how that has happened.
We are taking a hard look at difficult things. Why can we have the black television network
Oh, yeah.
and whites cannot have the white television network?
What about the Jewish enclaves in New York City?
Exactly.
You think if you and I go into a Jewish synagogue on Saturday that they would let us in? Or maybe
It depends. You have to prove that you're circumcised.
yeah, that's not happening. That's all the time we have left for this edition, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next occasion that we gather, may the Lord shine his face upon you.